Hey guys, can you hear me? I know you can't hear Danielle. Can you hear me? So if you guys will bear with us for just a quick second, we're having some technical difficulties, but we should have this worked out shortly. Give us just a minute, please.
All right. Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yay, we're live. Okay.
That was
It
a
would have
lot
helped
quicker
if,
than last time.
girl, I had to add myself to the stream. So
Oh, okay.
I'm something else at this. Hey, everybody. How y'all doing?
I'm just sending the link out. So bear with me for just a quick second here.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're good. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us. A few people that we do have here. Hopefully some other people will come on in. We are going, I'm sure you guys see the title of the stream, which is Have Black Women Who Support the Manosphere Turn Their Backs on the Sisterhood. So that's the primary topic of tonight, but we're going to kind of segue into that. So we'll start off talking about a few other things that are related, but not that specific title. So it's been a busy week, huh, Danny?
Girl.
I
It
know.
has been very, very, very busy.
Yes.
You,
Did you tell me that is it Mercury is in retrograde, or is it going to be in retrograde soon or something?
I think it's actually in the pre-shadow period, but I'd have to get the dates to see what's what, but I know
Okay.
we're very close.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, because it's been crazy. Like what's going on in these YouTube
honey,
streets? It's been
honey.
crazy, and we're trying to stay mess free, and but it's been crazy. So these are like some topics that we've kind of discussed already. Well, me and Danny have kind of went back and forth discussing, and some of the topics like we've seen people kind of touching on lately, so we don't want to overdo it. So we'll just briefly talk about them, and then we'll jump into the primary topic for tonight. So one topic that's very interesting that we keep hearing being thrown around is fake femininity. So, Danny, you want to take the lead on fake femininity, or just tell me, kind of elaborate on where that idea came from?
Okay, so when I've noticed it, I think the first time somebody said that I was being fake feminine, I was a part of a group, and I'm kind of rough around the edges, so but I still have a very girly side. I was raised in the South. I was raised with a grandmother that was very Southern, and my mother's very Southern. And so, but they were kind of rough around the edges too. But my mom was kind of like a hood Betty Crocker, so to speak. So it's like being a lady, but my mom was able to still talk sports. She can drink like a fish, so to speak, but she can get in and cook a whole Thanksgiving meal on a Sunday without a problem, without question. And I kind of feel like I have a lot of those aspects with me. And so I kind of wonder, when I get into these spaces, and that's like I curse, I talk shit, but I get up on panels and I'm not cursing guys out. And so people would be like, well, you're not really feminine because I know you have a hood side. And I'm like, well, damn, I was born a woman. So I kind of feel like certain things that come inherently with being born a woman, like I'm a woman. So I'm going to be feminine, I'm going to take on certain traits that women take on that are born women. And so I don't really feel like there's a such thing as fake femininity to me. Just like with men, I don't feel like a man can fake his masculinity in a certain sense. Now, I also kind of feel like what people mean is like, you're really not a lady. You're just a hood rat, gangster, crazy bitch that you can just kind of switch it off and on. So you're not really that feminine. You're not really that girly. You're just putting on an act to appear nice or to appear ladylike when you're not really ladylike. So that's what I kind of take from it.
And I don't want to, and I apologize if I have an echo, but I don't want to beat a dead horse. I know this topic has been one that we talked about, but just briefly, in reference to your idea of femininity, you said something that made me want to ask, do you think that like femininity is something that, all women are born with, or it's just natural for all women to be feminine? What is your take on, femininity as it relates to women as a whole?
I kind of feel like it depends on I want to say it depends on the environment, but then at the same token, um, there's certain things that happen, like, okay, women have menstrual cycles. Most of us have menstrual cycles at a certain point in our lives when you're born a woman. So your personality is going to do certain things. Um, you're going to be moody. You're going to be cranky maybe around that time. And I kind of feel like certain things about being born a woman will make you automatically feminine, just like a man having a penis kind of automatically makes him masculine. Um, and it's kind of hard to quantify like what really makes a woman feminine in a certain sense, because if you're born a woman, you're going to be feminine automatically to me. But at the same time, I guess if you grow up in a certain environment, like let's say you grew up around your dad and your dad's a man, so you're going to learn a lot of things from him. You're going to probably take on a lot of his traits.
True.
But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that?
The same goes for like, a woman, maybe a girl, if she's the only girl in the family, and she has a bunch of brothers or cousins or that are males. So I get that. I'll just briefly touch on my thoughts on it. I kind of talked about this on someone else's show. I think it was last week, and I have some unpopular opinions as it relates to femininity. So I personally think all women are born with the ability to be feminine. I think femininity is something that you have to make a conscious choice to do or not. I think that women in today's society aren't always in their feminine energy or at their highest level of femininity because of the way society is set up. Like we may be in boardroom meetings where we're running the show. In addition, we may have to be like out in the streets where we're trying to be protective of our person. So as a result, we're not in our most feminine energy. We are prey naturally. So I think a lot of times we might be on guard. So as a result, we're not trying to appear weak, and femininity is generally tied to weakness or, women being the weaker sex, quote unquote. But I think that every woman has the ability to be feminine, to be at her highest peak of femininity. I think, we make conscious choices to behave in a feminine manner or not. A lot of times it's depending upon, it may be for necessity or it may depend upon the specific situation at hand. And that's just my take on it.
So what would you qualify as a weak bitch? Because I've heard the term weak bitch being used over and over these last few days. And so in my opinion, being a feminine woman doesn't necessarily make you, it really, to me, in my opinion, a feminine woman doesn't mean a weak bitch in my opinion.
Oh, and that's not a term I would even use. So I don't know if I can speak to that because that's not a term that I would use. I, reference like weakness as us being the weaker sex. I have some unpopular opinions, so I'm likely to ruffle feathers, but I look at men as potential predators because they're stronger and they are predatory in the sense that we're at the top. We're, men, humans are, leading the race. So in order to do that, you have to be able to, exert a certain amount of strength, whether it be with the use of weapons or whatever they use to exert that strength. And it's generally men that are leading the charge for that. So I think that men have the ability to be predators, as does a woman, depending upon the circumstance, but just generally speaking. So when I say weak, I'm talking about being the weaker sex between the two genders.
Okay, so what do you think makes a woman weak?
I think that what would make a woman weak is the fact that she can easily be overpowered by a man. That she's no match for the most women aren't any match for the average man. So that's what I mean. Just physically, I'm strictly talking about in the physical sense.
Okay, let's go on the other side of it because
Mm-hmm.
most of us, we don't go around like Neanderthals trying to fight men, most of
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
But what would you say makes a woman a weak woman as far as emotionally for people and for men in general?
See, to me, emotionality is not a weak thing. I think that oftentimes it takes a strong person to display, his or her emotions. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm so different. So these YouTube talking points that we hear in these streets aren't things that I would generally subscribe to. So it's hard for me to speak to them because it's like the opposite of how I feel.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So let's just give an example.
Mhm.
Let's say you have a woman going half on the bills. She works just as hard as her man, but her man is still very dominant over her. Would you
Mhm.
consider that like an example of a weak woman?
No. Because I think it depends upon, I think that people do a lot of things that we've grown to be accustomed to, sparked out of necessity. I think that there was a time in our society, and I think that even more so now, where, most households require two incomes to stay afloat. If you look, like, there are studies that have been done on the amount of on inflation and how inflation has increased over 100 times fold, but our wages have not caught up to that. So as a result, many households require two incomes to stay afloat. So I mean, and we're it's different for other races. I'm talking about our people. A lot of times we're not going to get those cream of the crop jobs, and I'm not the person who um like does the victimhood thing, but I do think that I saw it growing up where my mom generally worked outside the home and my dad worked outside the home, and it required that. My mom also had 10 children, so as a result they needed two incomes. So to me, that does not make a woman weak.
So would you say that a woman who, let's say a woman is in an abusive relationship and she doesn't know how to leave, would you consider that being a weak woman? Like she has a man who beats her ass, curses her out. Would you consider
Mhm.
that a weak woman if she doesn't leave?
Now, it's interesting that you brought that up because I actually heard a point similar to that being made as it relates to, and these are some of the topics that we'll touch on, but as it relates to male identified women and or mammies, that women who are male identified or mammies, they find fault in women who might actually be victims. I personally would not consider a woman in that position weak necessarily. I do think that there is a certain level of accountability for anyone, no matter who they are. But I know that the psychological effects on her are beyond my understanding. And this is coming from a person who minored in psychology. But I know that, the psychological the mental hold that he would have on her is something that I wouldn't be able to comprehend. So I wouldn't consider that weak. Let me try to think of an example of what I would consider a weak woman, because there are some women that I'll be like, that's some weak mess. But I'm just kind of drawing a blank. Give me a minute and I'm going to come up with an example of a woman who I would deem to be like a weak chick.
Well, let me think. Well, this is one of the things that I thought about it with
Mm-hmm.
this. So I've seen women in abusive relationships, and let's say you've seen a guy. Um, let's say they get into a fight out in public, and you see somebody come to try to jump in the fight to break them up, and they
Mm-hmm.
pull the guy off of them, and you see the woman attack them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Attack the guy that's trying to break it up, like don't touch him, don't hit him. And so I thought about this, and I kind of thought about it in a further sense. And so I kind of realized that some people are actually addicted to a certain type of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're addicted to a certain type of pain, and that's what you know, um, you kind of go back to that pain because it's what you know. Maybe it makes you feel good. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you feel like a person really cares, but at the end of the day, it all requires some healing in a certain sense. So I
Yeah,
kind of think
but
about
for
it like that.
me, in that case, like I think that like you could have some sort of PTSD, or like I think that uh I believe that post-traumatic slave syndrome is a very real thing. I think that you could have some sort of residual effects from being in that relationship that affected you mentally. Now, the one thing, the first thing that came to mind when I tried to think about a woman that I would deem to be a weak B would be a woman who does not, and that's just because I'll explain it in a second. A woman who does not do everything in her power to protect her children. I can't even empathize with a woman who's in an abusive relationship who allows her child to be abused because of the fact that children are helpless. Like they don't have the ability to defend themselves. Even if you can't stand up to a man and defend himself, there are a multitude of options that you can exercise to protect your child. So a woman who allows her child to be abused would be a woman who I would deem a weak B.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. That is absolutely fair. Yeah, I can absolutely say that because the children are definitely important. And, I kind of feel like a mother's job is to protect her children, or a parent's jobs are to protect their children. So I can absolutely agree with that.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
did want to speak on the fake femininity thing because I know I kind of, just let you kind of segue into it. But I think that it's absolutely laughable that people are questioning the sincerity or the realness or authenticity of someone else's femininity, especially really, in my opinion, without valid reason. We don't know, most of us don't know each other offline. There's really no basis for questioning whether or not someone's faking femininity, and the fact that those terms have been thrown around as it relates to yourself and myself, like we challenge men all the time. Like we the thing is we challenge men all the time, but the issue comes into play when we challenge women, which kind of leads us into the sisterhood thing. But before I go there, I do just want to say, I know some other terms that are like often thrown around as it relates to myself and women like me and some other sisters that are throughout Black YouTube would be like mammyism or male identified. And those terms are Black people love to misuse words. Those terms are being misused. They're not being used in the appropriate context. Like mammy relates to a woman that's protecting a white man, period. So I don't know how they've kind of tried to adopt that term and apply it to Black women who are not calling out Black men, or Black women who have somehow are deemed to have wronged the sisterhood. But male identified, now that term, and these are definitions that I looked up in like Urban Dictionary, because in order to get like a concrete definition, I couldn't really find one on other sites. But even male identified, like when I looked that up, I don't know how that could be used as it relates to me, because it was like kind of talking about a woman who is like defending you know, ain't shit man, or a man who ain't about nothing, who, and that like, I have never seen you do that, and I certainly have never done that. So I don't know how those terms are being applied to us.
Well, I know exactly how they're being applied to us.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I can't sit around and co-sign a woman's bullshit because I know what bullshit looks like when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
I have been I have I've done shit, you know, I've done
Mm-hmm.
shit to men. So the thing about it is, when they say women are on code in a certain sense, we're on
Mm-hmm.
code as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Because we'll sit there and condone a woman's shit. And it's mostly because most of us feel like we've been done wrong by a man in a certain sense.
Mm-hmm.
So when a woman gets some type of gall about herself, and she starts to do the same shit that's been done to her, or maybe not, sometimes we'll cheer that shit on because we're tired of seeing women being fucked over in a sense. I'm just saying it from a woman's standpoint on why it would be deemed as male identified.
Okay.
And you know, if we co-sign a woman doing some fuckery, you know, we're not male identified if we co-sign women doing fuckery. But the fact that we don't co-sign it and we're able to call it out, that is going to be probably a big issue, because a lot of women in this space, a lot of women in this space don't feel like men should have, men don't really have a leg to stand on, because
Mm-hmm.
men have done a lot of things to them, but a lot of us don't. A lot of us play the victim and the volunteer as well. But if you call that shit out, it's like a big no-no. So
And I get that, and I understand it from, but you know, the terms are being misused first and foremost. However, I you know, I understand, like, I've been in a position where I've been hurt by, you know, a man as well. But the women who, you know, because of the fact that they've been hurt by a man, they can't, they don't see that there's any accountability to be had on behalf of Black women, as it relates to some of the mess that they do. I don't feel like they're any better than the men that they're attempting to call out, or want to call out, or desire to call out in the manosphere. Like, you're kind of doing somewhat the same thing that they're doing. So I don't, um, you know, feel like, you know, you it's kind of, it's hypocritical, you know, of women to not be able to, or feel like there's no accountability to be had on both sides. um and you know, as it relates to the sisterhood, I've always been one to, like, I always had a lot of girlfriends. Like, growing up, look, I had a lot of friends. Like, I've always been one to have, you know, pretty nice circle of friends. So I, when I first started to hear things like the sisterhood is some BS, or it's a farce, it doesn't really exist, you know, I denied that. And I was like, no, it does. You know, Black women are on code. We're, you know, we have this quote unquote sisterhood. You know, it's this mythical sisterhood that we belong to, and doing certain things are against the sisterhood. And I fought hard to, you know, defend it. However, in my state of consciousness, I have to be honest with myself and admit that it's a mess. That it's something that people use at their convenience, at their leisure, to hold others accountable for their actions, or for their quote unquote misgivings as it relates to the sisterhood, as you know, through their eyes, or what they see as misgivings. But aren't um, they aren't upholding standards of sisterhood themselves. They're doing the exact opposite of what a real sister would do. You know what I mean? Like, things that are absolutely egregious, some things that would be worse than what we've seen men in this space do, you know? And, you know, we don't necessarily have to go there, but, you know, that's part of our topic for tonight too. So I just kind of wanted to say that as well.
yeah, we can definitely speak on it. I mean, it happened. So
You know, so.
yeah, because what happened this weekend was, I still feel like a sisterhood exists among
Hmm.
Black women, among women, period, to be honest. And in a sense that Black women have a set of unique experiences that no other race of women are ever going to go through. Um, Certain things that we can relate to with one another, with how our parents treated us, with the way we got our hair combed, with the way we dance, our rhythm. There's just certain things about Black women and that we're going to relate to.
Hmm.
And I kind of feel like that bonds us. So I still feel like a sisterhood exists. Now, how deep that bond goes is probably a different thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're tied together by our unique experiences, and that is, I won't deny that, but there's not a set standard that not even most Black women are subscribing to. There's not a set standard that, we're upholding as it relates to one another. We're not treating each other with love and, making certain that we're defending one another. And, like we'll defend some mess, we'll defend some fuckery, but we're not in real time subscribing to a set standard. We're just absolutely not. Yes, we are tied together by our experiences, but this sisterhood that is often thrown around as it relates to women when they're doing something that is deemed beneficial for the other side, I don't see where it exists. It's. I mean, I must be missing something.
Yeah, like I said, if you choose to hold women accountable and you're able to understand where a man is coming from when he says certain things about women, especially when those things are bad, um, I kind of feel like the sisterhood feels like you're turning your back on them.
Well, and I do too. But so this is my issue. So, talking about the sisterhood and as it relates to this topic, I'm going to tell you something. I used to be the biggest of sistership. I was always like, oh man, Black women, no, because we use that, just talking about Black women who I have no relation to. And my man was the one who started hipping me to certain things that I was doing, mainly excluding Black men. However, I consider myself to be conscious, but all of my fights and all of my passion, as it relates to the community, was solely focused on the sisterhood. I realized that I was doing it to the exclusion of the brothers. Now, a conscious person, I make a concerted effort to ensure that my love for my people does not stop, and I won't choose sides. So I'm not going to say, I don't specifically as it women who support the Black manosphere are are turning their backs on the sisterhood because they're supporting a Black space. Yes, there are things that I absolutely things that make me cringe, but I don't have to listen to it, and I choose not to. It's quite healthy for men to have a space where they can go and they can congregate and they can, gripe and complain, because we've always had that. There's never been a time that we didn't have that. But I'm not going to choose. It's like me having to choose between my sister or my brother. They're be like, oh, I'm not on a side. We're family. Like we are, they can have their space over there and we can have our space to vent. I don't there's a million things I don't agree with here. I don't like the rhetoric that comes out of there either. However, I don't think that it is a slap in the face, or it's a strike towards the sisterhood for a Black woman to give some sort of support to the manosphere. I think that a lot of the ways, do if they're ghosts, a lot of women do support. You know what I mean? And they shouldn't be forced to not support because one person, some people don't like what's being said over there. I think that there are times that we can all agree that we don't like there. In addition, there's stuff on the women's side that I don't like. I mean, that I completely disagree with. So,
That's true.
okay, I'm off my
Okay.
soapbox.
So, okay, being that you're a woman and you have been hurt by men, and we've known, and I'm just saying from their perspective, okay, if we've known of men to hurt and to have been harmful to these women, and these women end up coming into a certain perspective about men, I kind of feel like the men here don't really feel that women should be entitled to those certain perspectives when they've actually been hurt. And so I kind of I get I see it. And so what I'm trying to do is bridge the gap, because everybody has been hurt by everybody. You know what I'm saying? Men have been hurt by women, which is why they complain about a lot of stuff. Women have been hurt by men, which is why they complain a lot of stuff. And it's just a constant back and forth of pointing the fingers. But in a certain sense, do you feel that the men are just as accountable that they want how they want women to be accountable? And I'm saying not society holding the men
I'm gonna
accountable,
answer.
but the men being accountable for themselves.
Well, I'm going to answer that, but I first want to say just really quickly, you just hit on something that's very key to me. You're right. I feel that we hurt each other. We've done some pretty nasty things to one another. We've damaged each other. However, it's important for people like me, people like you, the males that are that go over to the women's space and have like dialogue. Like if there's ever any desire to heal what's been done and to move past this, and to kind of bridge the gap and or make an amends, and kind of start to repair our community, it's important to have people that are willing to listen to what the brothers are saying, take in what they're saying, and acknowledge the wrong from our side. But back to your question. I think that in this space, we don't see a lot of accountability. And maybe that's the problem that the sisters have. And I can't knock them for that. I do think that there's a lack of accountability because I don't think that people are really having honest conversations. They're too busy trying to one up the other side. Oh, see, gotcha. You know what I mean? To be raw and honest about certain things.
Okay. I be kind of looking at it like guys don't feel like the women are accountable, in that women are accountable. But the thing about it is, I feel like the men have been held accountable, being that you have child support laws, you have law enforcement that lock them up if they don't do certain things, if they don't pay child support, if they don't
Yeah.
if they abide by certain with the laws. Go ahead.
But they're not being held accountable for like their fuckery, so to speak, and or like maybe like heartbreak, for example. So maybe that's
Right.
not the type of accountability that they expect. Like sometimes it's good just to hear someone say, like I recently heard it might have been like Big Sean or somebody was saying, like that gave like a public apology to women in their past because of things that they've done. Like I love for men to say that because that's like raw and honest. Like we've all done some messed up stuff, but to say, you know what, I was horrible in my teens and my as a young adult, I did some horrible things to women and I just want to apologize. Like an apology goes a long way with people. So to hear, and I love hearing men just be honest and upfront and not concerned about, how it's going to look and or how the brothers are going to receive it necessarily.
So you don't feel like heartbreak is kind of like a casualty of war, so to speak? Like heartbreak is bound to happen. Women just kind of need to get over it, because men are just told to kind of get over it. Like,
Well, I think that heartbreak is going to happen. I think it's not the end of the world. To be completely honest, from what I see, I think that the women take it a lot better than the men do. I think that if you listen to it, a lot of the griping that you hear, even in the manosphere, is because of heartbreak. It's because of rejection. It's because of, and I think that, the women honestly deal with it a lot better than what I've seen the men deal with it. So if you really think about it, a lot of what they're complaining about is from, based off of their emotions too.
yeah. Auntie Wanda said it's not the same. Payment is one thing, but refusing to be a father is another.
Mm.
But then I kind of employ, wouldn't that still fall back on the woman in what she chose? Um, I kind of look at it like, okay, I have a son, and me and my son's father didn't remain together. And my son's father moved across the country. And so I was hella resentful of that for a while. Like, like shit, I'm left to take care of a baby by myself. Um, a real man wouldn't leave his child, and certain things that I wanted to put off on him. But it took me a long time to kind of look at myself and said, okay, well, I did make a choice to have sex with him. I did make a choice to have a baby by him.
But
I
you didn't
did.
know he was gonna move across the country?
No, I didn't know he was going to move across the country, but then there are certain things that led up to him moving across the country,
Oh, okay.
like things prior to me getting pregnant that I saw, and I chose not to leave.
Okay.
And so when I began to break down the red flags that I saw, there were a lot of things that could have been avoided before I even got to that point. And so I kind of feel like women aren't accountable up to a certain point. Now with my child, now I have to be accountable because I have to make sure he has everything. If his father chooses to do things, and I'm not saying that his father's a bad father, but if his father chooses to do things, he chooses to do them. But I don't get to pick and choose when I get to be a parent. So in that sense, I'm always going to be accountable like that. But I kind of feel like the men look at it as though women make choices, and when women make choices, the choices that we make, we aren't 100% accountable for, because we're still looking for cushion, we're still looking for things. And then when it's not, like if you're having babies out of wedlock and those babies aren't provided for, we of course look to the man because we didn't make the babies by ourselves. But at the same token, if we have babies out of wedlock, then I feel like a lot of women don't really look forward to the consequences that come with having babies and doing certain things that they need to be accountable for. I don't really feel like we look at the end game of it.
Well, personally, I do think that, there's a lack of accountability on both sides. Now, I have to be honest, I'm going to be true to myself and say, it is almost next to impossible to get a large majority of Black women to take accountability for their actions. I think that in this space, I see a lack of accountability on both sides, but in real life, I see men who are willing to be accountable for their actions, more men that are willing to be accountable for their actions than women. I have to, keep it real.
Yeah, you're absolutely well. I'm really sitting here trying to think, and I was thinking about this earlier. Do I really see men in this space take accountability for? Well, let me ask you.
Not in this space. I'm not talking about in this space. I'm talking about in
Oh, okay.
No, these they ain't taking accountability for Nathan. Like, accountability. No, sis, that's on you. You should have put a condom on them. You should, like, they gonna find a way to blame the woman for everything.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I really don't notice men take accountability for being victims as well. I don't feel like women take in certain senses, because women fall under a certain victimhood, and it's everybody did this to me, everybody did this to me.
Listen, and you ain't lying. I see it all the time.
Yeah, we want to run from that, because being the victim, somebody's gonna come and pat you on the ass and tell you it's gonna be okay.
But you know what? Women, that is almost that is something that's almost like, we grow up being told that it's okay to be victimized, and that's what's kind of confusing to me, because if you look at like this new era that we're in, you have women want to be the victim, but they also want to be the man's equal. It's like they want to be, cry victim, but they also want to be seen as his equal and want to be, and it's kind of it makes no sense. But no, I see that a whole lot. Yes, women, we don't like to be accountable. And I'm saying we because, like, I'm a Black woman too. I went through that. it's like in recent years that I started having to take like a deep look at myself and say, hey, there's some stuff you got to fix too. To be completely honest, my ex, we were together for over 14 years. And I used to say I did absolutely nothing wrong in the relationship. Like I couldn't see anything that I did wrong. I literally thought, I'm like the perfect mate. Like, but being in this relationship with my fiance, it's quite different. Like I can clearly see my flaws because it's not overshadowed by his mess. So, I know that sometimes it's hard for us to take that look in the mirror. And I'm telling you, like it was in recent years, like after I turned 35, I started to do like a lot of deep reflection. And I was like, dang, you got some stuff you need to work on too, sis. So, I was included in that until, a couple years ago.
Girl, let me give you my first big lesson of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So I was dating this guy, and he had did something, but it wasn't bad, but it was like, I'm out of this shit. And so, I go to my mom and I'm telling my mom about it. And my mom was like, well, you don't do anything but date the same dudes over and over again. They just have different faces. And I was like, I couldn't curse her out, but I was like, you talking about, like, whatever,
Right.
And it took me a long time to realize that it was something about me that attracted a certain energy to me. Mm-hmm. So you're going to keep dating the same people over and over again. You're going to keep dealing with the same people over and over again until you fix something within you that won't make you attracted to that. And so, yeah, that was my big lesson in my first lesson into self-awareness, I'll say.
Yeah. And that was a good one. She did like this is
she stunned me.
Yeah, she did. And sometimes it takes a moment like that, like for you to be like, dang, like I mean, yeah, like sometimes those moments of clarity are good. They're good to have, and the earlier you can have them, the better, because then you will start. It may be something that's hurtful in the beginning, you may not want to accept it, but once you lay down and you are alone with your own thoughts, then you really have to face reality and be like, dang, I got some mess I gotta face, But I have a question for you. So you didn't answer the question regarding the topic yet. How do you feel, and what is your take on whether or not women who support the manosphere have turned their backs on the sisterhood?
Okay, so I kind of feel like, yes, in a sense. If the manosphere is about building stronger communities and building legacies and moving forward and being accountable and making a better life for ourselves, and if that's turning my back on the manosphere, then I'm all for that.
Turning your back on the sisterhood, you mean?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's kind of interesting because they kind of try to say who's going to protect you more. I can't look to a woman for protection because I feel like a woman is like me. There are certain things that make my man invaluable to me. There are certain things that make men invaluable. And so if they're asking me to choose a vagina over a penis, it's going to be a penis every time in a certain sense. And so it's kind of messed up because, and I'm a girl's girl, I think women are some of the best. We're the shit, we're women. And there are certain things that women are excellent at, certain things that we're great at. We're the nurturers. We bring life into the world. But me saying that I agree with a lot of manosphere topics and things that they say in their talking points doesn't diminish the greatness of a woman. And so, no, it's not to diminish the greatness of a woman, but it's for me to find my part and to go with my counterpart and for us to build and for us to have stronger communities and better family structures. But that's just my opinion. What do you think?
Now, I do think that, like, okay, you had a point. You said this, if the manosphere was about building and about improving the community and things of that nature. Now, I do think that there is some area of opportunity there. There are some men in the manosphere or who were at once point in time at least considered manosphere. You know, like Cerulean Gray, the Black Brain Trust. There's you know, there's a few notable people within the manosphere who are about building. But even on the other side, like, it's gossip, it's messiness, it's, you know, not everybody on the other side is trying to build and trying to help our people and help our community or advance us as a people either. You know, so it's mess on both sides. Like, I feel like, you know, both sides need to sweep around their own door. You know
That's
what I mean?
true.
Before calling out the other side.
That's true. Now, if you're talking about the black men, because Auntie Wanda mentioned that a lot of them hate black women, and a lot of them do. I don't support those guys, period, point blank. I just, no. So that sector of the manosphere, no, I can't. I won't support that because I'm a black woman, for one. While I can be accountable for my own actions, and I can understand where some of them are coming from, there is a certain hate that they put out that's atrocious.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I don't think nobody's rocking with those guys.
I hope not. But would you say that they make up a large part of the manosphere?
You know what? I have to admit, like, I'm an empath. So I am, oh my gosh, a feeler. Oh, I feel bad for him. I think a lot of those brothers are hurt. And a part of me feels bad. Like, dang, I want to give him a hug. Like, that's just who I am. Like, I feel, to be completely honest, like, and men don't like, you know, you to say this in public because they don't want to seem weak. But I feel bad for a lot of them. Like, they seem hurt. And if you listen to them tell their stories and you just kind of pay attention to some of their comments, like, they generally like have a common theme. They'll be talking about, yeah, because they like will like relive the experience, negative experiences that they had with women. So I do think that there is a lot of toxic men in the manosphere, but I think that they need healing. Like, I don't want, you know, I don't think that, I'm not going to personally support them, but I think that what they need is they need to heal. And this isn't necessarily the place that they should come to looking to heal. But you know, I feel bad for a lot of them.
Well, let me ask you this, because I'll be honest with you. My first entrance, or my first introduction into the manosphere, was from Tommy Sotomayor. And Tommy Sotomayor was talking about things that I had never heard said about a black woman. Now, mind you, I grew up in a broken home, so to speak. While initially my home was broken in a sense. And so me growing up in a broken home and knowing that my mother was the cause of that broken home kind of did a number on me, because I was kind of a man blamer. Like, the man was responsible for everything. It was the man's fault. The man did everything wrong. And, you know, you kind of grow up with that ideology of a woman not having her own set of fuckery and not recognizing the fuckery in a sense. And so when I got here and I heard Tommy Sotomayor, I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh, this guy, he's horrible and he hates women, and he hates now I still kind of feel like he hates women, but he didn't lie on everything he was talking about. He wasn't lying on everything. So
now, I could never get with Tommy. I heard his, and the, you know, the weird part is, people might say, well, you listen to Obsidian, but you can't listen to Tommy. Maybe it's because I was able to have personal dialogue with Obsidian, and Obsidian talks a lot of, he gives a lot of like personal anecdotes and talks about his own, you know, personal experience a lot. Whereas I have not heard Tommy do that, but I don't listen, so it's possible that he has. But being able to kind of hear parts of Obsidian's story is like, oh, I feel bad for him. And I know he probably wouldn't like knowing that or hearing that, but it's like,
girl, you know, we're about to lose like 15 subscribers behind your shit, right?
Listen, I'm sorry. I'm an empath. You gotta excuse me. But I just kind of like hearing his story, like that person, like, I guess I was able to kind of somewhat build a personal relationship, I guess as personal as it can be, by being on panels and just dialoguing with him. Whereas I guess I never gave Tommy that chance, but I was just so repelled by some of the things he said. And I guess, you know, coming into Black YouTube, I was able to kind of be eased into the likes of Obsidian before just kind of being like shocked by all that he was saying. I mean, I was hearing other things.
I had an analogy for that, but I'm gonna leave it alone. But I get what you're saying.
Gosh. Oh Lord. But you know, so it wasn't as bad as I guess my first introduction to Tommy, where I just was like, oh my gosh, how could he say those things? You know?
Yeah, people get mad because I like Obsidian.
It's funny.
Obsidian's funny, but when you talk to Obsidian outside of these streams and everything else, and you catch Obsidian in a back chat, you really can have real dialogue, and he's not talking shit and being a shock jock. You really do get to have real dialogue with him. So I think that kind of endears him to me. You know, like, oh, he ain't that bad.
I kind of figured even too, like that Obsidian was like a lot of what he does is trolling too. So I kind of chalked it up to that, and I'm like, a lot of it, I'm like, oh, you can't take him serious. That's Obsidian. He crazy, you know.
So okay, I've heard a lot of people mention something about Obsidian mentioning that Black women should die in their own excrement if they've chosen a certain type of man. What do you think about that?
Now, regarding that, so context is important to me. I'm not excusing him. If he said that it was absolutely trashy, I do believe that he likely said it for views. And to me, that's a dangerous thing because I don't believe that you should be able to be bought and sold. If you can be bought and sold, then you know you're not going to ever be loyal to your people. Like you're really not loyal to anything. You're not loyal to yourself if you can be bought and sold. So that's a dangerous place to be. But like for me personally, I think that if he said that, it's absolutely awful. But I would like to hear it. Not that I don't believe it, but I just need to hear it for myself to process for myself. You know, I have to hear it, you know, and I somebody might have played it on their stream or something. This is when I think I was kind of in and out because I had a whole bunch of stuff going on. But I don't doubt that he said it. You know, I just want to hear it for myself before I can comment on it. I'll say that.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Is there a person that can say something that's so egregious that would make you X out the whole person? Now, mind you, let's say this guy came up with the cure for cancer in the common cold, for crying out loud. And let's say he hates Black women. Would you count that person out?
I mean, I wouldn't be. If you hate Black women, I can't rock with you.
Okay, so
but that's the same way if you hate Black men too.
That's true too.
Can't rock with you.
Hold on just a second.
Okay.
Child, my son lost a tooth today. It just fell down the sink and he is having a fit.
Oh.
Say hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Oh, that poor baby.
No, give me just a second. I'm listening.
Find that baby tooth. But, you know, I mean, like I said, I would like to hear it myself. I don't doubt that he said it. I've already formed my opinion of Obsidian. I don't know that hearing it though would change my opinion of him. I don't necessarily have the highest opinion of him. Excuse me, but I you know, it's not hard for me to believe he said it, like that he would say something like that. You know, just before I comment on it, that I would just like to hear it for myself, just to be fair.
Okay. I'm not gonna quote all the way, but from what I heard him say was, if a woman deals with a certain type of man, if she deals with thugs, if she deals with men who treat her wrong and treat her disrespectfully, if the consequences, if she ends up getting hurt behind that, he's not going to come save her. and he wouldn't care if she died in her own excrement. I think that's what he said. Don't quote me on it. I'm not really sure. But then at the same time, do you think that would hold women more accountable for who they choose as mates? Because I think part of a problem is,
angle.
Yeah, I think part of a problem with a lot of us is we choose the wrong people as mates. But
you know what? That's a good point. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you, because I have something to say about that. Like, that topic came up somewhere else recently, and I wanted to comment on it.
Okay. Because I would look at a man. If you look at a man and you said, well, if you got fucked over by Sally Susie or whatever, that's your problem. And if you keep choosing the wrong bitches, ain't nobody coming to save you, which nobody usually comes to save men, but women, we do look for somebody to come help us in a sense. What do you think about that?
So for me, I think that people are entitled to have a mistake. I think that if you have a pattern of behavior and a pattern of picking the wrong type of guys, and you 40 years old and still doing the same nonsense, then I'm side-eyeing you, and I ain't rocking with you, and I'm not going to defend your mess. However, a lot of women, and this might have came up on the back chat, made some of these decisions when they were younger, in their teens, in their 20s, young adults, and they sometimes the guy was charismatic, sometimes they ignored red flags, sometimes they knew he wasn't nothing. But people, like, we are human. There's nobody on this platform who has not made a mistake against someone. I'm more the type of person that looks at patterns of behavior, and what did you learn from that? If you went from that bad situation to another bad situation that mirrors what you were just in, then you got I'm side-eyeing you, and I'm not going to defend or stand with you for when you're trying to victimize yourself and come off as a victim. But to me, if somebody made a mistake 20 years ago, had a child out of wedlock, did whatever 10 years ago, and they learn from their mistake. Like, we're human. I hear people trying to shame women for having children out of wedlock, trying to shame women for wrong guy, picking the wrong guy to marry, do whatever. Like, I think that is unfair, because the only way that you can shame someone and sit in judgment is if you've never done anything wrong in your life, and that's we know that that's not realistic.
Okay. I kind of look at it like it would still take accountability away from the woman, because certain choices that we make are going to be far more detrimental, because we can have kids, because we're going to end up being the single mothers. I kind of feel like it falls back on us in a certain sense.
But these same men are complaining about having to pay child support. So that decision falls back on you. You made a decision to sleep with the wrong woman without a condom. And you know what I mean? Like, some of these same men and these same platforms are complaining about some of the same issues and how that affects them, just like women, which women, you ain't really hearing women sitting up and doing a bunch of complaining. They just getting down to business and doing what they got to do. So it's unfair to judge somebody and to cross somebody out, and or to crucify somebody or act like, oh, that's the only thing that you are basically attacking their character based on a mistake, or not necessarily a decision that they made that led to a poor outcome.
Yeah.
I feel you, sis. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really feel like people, I guess if the mistakes keep happening, then something is going to have to be done by that. Now, I wouldn't necessarily, I'm not even going to say not necessarily, I definitely wouldn't want anybody to die because of a mistake they made. Right. And so with that, in that sense, I'm definitely going to empathize and sympathize with women, because I've made mistakes in my life. Now, granted, I don't keep making the same mistakes, but I do feel like if everybody was more accountable for who they slept with, a lot of things would be better off. But being that the women have to be the ones to carry the babies and to raise the babies by themselves, it would be more beneficial for them to definitely be more accountable, because I've seen guys evade child support.
But the men in this space who say that and use that as talking points, they're also promoting casual sex. How are you saying that women should be more accountable for their actions, and women should this and women should that, but in the same breath, you're promoting casual sex, the same type of behavior that leads to these situations that women are in? Like, stop telling men to go out and just have casual sex if you think that women should be, should refrain from making the choices that are putting them in these positions that you talk about.
I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with that. I agree with that. That was one of the things that I had a problem with, is because he does promote sex on the first night. He does promote bending women over his couch and stuff. And so I'm like, well, how in one breath you don't want bastard babies, but you're promoting.
Sex is a procreative act. Sex leads to babies. You know what I mean? Tell these men to go find a good woman and marry her, because condoms aren't 100%, and things happen, and people still get pregnant, with wearing a condom. So, the type of the exact behavior that you are encouraging is what leads to what you consider to be the decline of our community, or one of the primary factors in the decline of our community.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree to that. What would you do about people who wanted to have casual sex? Do you think they should get dolls?
I think you should. I mean, I don't promote that, but if that's your thing, like, to be honest, because there's no way around it unless it is a doll, you are putting yourself in a position that can lead to exactly what we are discussing. There's no one foolproof 100% way aside from a doll that, or you getting a vasectomy. If you have a vasectomy, cool, rock out, but,
so we should encourage more vasectomies in our community. What do you think about that?
If people don't want children, why not? If you absolutely don't want children, and you're concerned about somebody getting in your pockets, and you're concerned about more, bastard babies in the community, yeah, do us a favor and go ahead and get snipped.
Very interesting. But I think men still
because I say that, and I'm sorry, because I know that they're going to talk smack. I say that because that is the one thing that's within your control. You can't control whether she's going to be using birth control, and you can't control what she's doing, but that is the one thing that you have complete power over.
I noticed men talk about all the forms of birth control that women have, and they have 30 types of birth control. But it's interesting. You won't trust women with your money. You won't trust women with your cars, but you'll trust women with your sperm. And it's quite interesting to me, because it's like, you don't really know, but then I tell men to stop having sex with women that they wouldn't want to procreate with.
Absolutely.
But men, of course, are not going to want to hear that. But
but every single time you lay down with a woman, you are risking procreation. So you need to be mindful of that. You know what I mean? You looking at that big butt, you know what I mean? However, her character is absolutely deplorable, and it's not somebody that you would want to raise a dog, share custody of a dog with. So think about that. I know people gonna do what they do, but I'm just, saying it just makes sense.
Let me ask you, my little love bug says, can't discount the fact that a lot of chicks want the casual sex just as much or more than the men do. He's driving. And stop texting while you're driving, Curlin.
I mean, I'm not discounting that at all, but I'm just saying this is the complaints that we're hearing are coming from the men. So I'm saying this is the one thing that is within your control. You can't, she may want to have casual sex, but then again, she might also, her biological clock may be ticking, and she might also want a baby, or she might also want to get in them pockets. So, that's the thing that I was just saying that because that's the one thing within your control. If women were the ones doing the complaining, I would be addressing them.
That's true, but men don't want to be in control of their sperm. They want to leave us in control of it and then
Mhm,
complain when we create with it. So I kind
mhm,
of feel like that's real
exactly.
interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, do you want to go into something else?
Um, I don't know. Do the people in the chat have any questions? Wait, while you're doing that, I'm gonna check my notes to make sure because I had actually researched the topic, and even though we kind of we kind of delved away from that and kind of delved into something else. I just want to make sure I covered everything.
Ask a classy black man TV radio news wisdom says, how are they men if they're in their 20s at the breakdown a woman's perspective? Um, that's kind of hard. I
Well,
kind of
technically, you are still a man. You might have not reached your peak of manhood. You may still be maturing, but if you're in your 20s, you're a man.
Yeah, just like when you're 18, you become a woman, so to speak. So to
Yeah.
speak. According to society. We didn't
You
make these
know,
rules.
I thought about something too as it relate. Well, I just read something like it's a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't cover. But anyways, there was a regarding that conversation on femininity, and I'm sorry for backtracking, but there was a point that was made, and I kind of understood it, and it was something that you just said that made me think about it. So in my household growing up, my mom was a force to be reckoned with. Like she was a piece of work. But my dad, he was kind of more like the silent type, just observant, silent. He, was just he was very different than my mom. But because my mom was like that and I didn't necessarily like the way she handled my dad at times, I was able to, I guess that if I were male identified in the sense that they're trying to use it, that would probably be the beginning of where that came from, because I sided with my dad. Like I hated seeing, like I would be upset with her, like, oh, I was a daddy's girl. Don't talk to my daddy like that. You know what I mean? I would never say that to her, but in the back of my little mind, that's what I was thinking. And I didn't like it, and I tended to be able to relate to his argument or where he was coming from, and I just growing up seeing that um, made me sensitive to what men go through. You know what I mean? So, and like the topic of femininity, they were talking about. Well, someone made the point of how their dad taught them how to be feminine, and I realized that my dad did too. With kind of in an overt way, like just like learning the behaviors that he approved of. Like I was a daddy's girl, and I wanted my daddy's approval, and I wanted I wanted favor with my dad. So I knew like keeping my room clean, just simple stuff, but just it kind of is what pushed me into my femininity and made me want to do, be a young lady. I knew, it was small things, but it was just kind of what I learned to, that would seem to be approved of by my dad, who was like my hero, is still my hero and just my everything. So that's kind of like, that was my introduction into femininity, even though I didn't realize it at the time and didn't realize it until recently. But regarding your point, I had I kind of had the same thing growing up, but it affected me in the opposite way.
I got you. My mom was the first woman I admire and the first woman I wanted to emulate in a certain sense because my mom was
Oh.
so well grounded. She was just really, really real rounded, and so she was kind of my first introduction to femininity. But my mom also showed me the fuckery side, and so I would say my mom was originally red pill from the jump. So
See, and my dad,
yeah.
like, if things that my mom would, he'd be like, ladies don't do that, and like I'll be like, okay, daddy, you know what I mean? So I was like, my dad said, ladies don't do that, like, and my
Right.
mom was like, ain't nobody trying to hear what your daddy talking, she was just a piece of work,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just interesting how we can have kind of parallel things that we saw, but it can affect people in different ways.
Okay.
Anything else you want to add?
Well, I wanted to introduce our Black female fuckery tip of the day.
Mm.
I don't know if they're ready
Okay.
for it.
Well,
So,
they better
since
get
we.
ready. I'm joking.
Okay. So, women, if you choose to have side dudes, please stop doing stuff in front of your side dudes. Don't talk to your man in front of your side dude. Don't talk about your man to your side dude. If you choose to have a side dude, keep your mouth shut. Just let it be what it is, because you're ruining it for everybody else. You're just ruining it. And you when you're dealing with another man, you're trying to boost his ego up, you make the side dude look at your man as weak, and it's just wrong. And so that's the Black female fuckery tip of the day. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank y'all for listening. We really appreciate you guys' support. We will do a midweek stream this week, so we'll schedule it. It'll probably be the middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, maybe Wednesday. And kind of try to give you guys a heads up so y'all can come out and support again. And soon we'll have a panel where you guys can hop on here too and give us your take, because we want to hear from y'all too.